Welcome, Life Sciences, to yet another exciting life science lesson. We're following on the path of microorganisms, really small little things that unfortunately cause a lot of harm. And today we're going to focus on the microorganism of the kingdom fungi. So far, we've looked at 3 microorganisms. This is the last one in our microorganism series. We looked at viruses, we looked at bacteria, and we've looked at protists. And fungi is the last one in the group of microorganisms. Now, if we have a look at fungi, I quite enjoyed putting this question together, that fungi, all right, I love to eat fungi, and fungi is mushrooms, right? And we use yeast when we bake bread. But also remember what we're focusing on. We're focusing on the diseases that these microorganisms, all right, are going to cause. So it's a funny thing. Really like to eat it, but at the same time, it really can make you sick. So that's the concept that we're going to look at when we're looking at fungus. Now, remember guys, for each of the microorganisms, we have followed a particular pattern of what we need to look at, right? So the 3 things that we need to focus on for each of our microorganisms. One is the characteristics. So why is it in that particular kingdom? What characteristics is unique to that particular microorganism? Right, then we also look at the structure. For fungus, there's a little bit more, there's lots of scope here, but we're going to focus on particularly bread mold. I'm sure lots of you have sometimes grown your own bread mold, even though you shouldn't have. And then what we're going to look at the last is we look at a series of diseases, right, that fungus could, all right, obviously cause. Pathogenic, viruses, bacteria, and protists. We looked at the same thing, and then at the end, we concentrated on a disease that could have an effect. Luckily for us, fungus is not so deadly as the previous ones. It causes a little bit of discomfort, all right, but we'll get to that just now. Let's have a look at what we're going to look at. There's quite a few words here that I think are going to be new for you. It is quite heavily, all right, terminology-wise, the words are new. You might not be able to understand them, but please remember, have a look at them, use your resources, be able to understand what they mean as we go through, all right, this lesson, so those terms are going to be explained to you, so you'll be able to understand it just a little bit clearer. Okay, guys, so what are we looking at when we look at fungi? Right, so let's have a look at the characteristics. So the first thing we need to look at, unlike bacteria, they're the same as protists. Fungi are eukaryotic. And when we look at the cell, what are we looking at? We're looking at an organism that has a definite nucleus, right? That's what eukaryotic means. And also, because it's a little more complex, we're going to see all these different organelles, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi body, etc. Now, when we use the term microorganism here, we still need to use a microscope sometimes, but have a look here. I think a lot of you, all right, have grown mold before. We often use the word mold, all right, when we use fungi, and it's something we can see. And as I said, I love mushrooms, right? And mushrooms are fungi, and a lot of it, we can see it, we can cook with it, and even though I look at the bread mold here, we might not be able to see the detail, but I definitely can see that there's something growing on my bread, right? And that would stop me from eating it before I get sick. Okay, now there's a lot of terminology here when it comes to how fungus receive their food. All right, so very importantly, all fungus are heterotrophic. What does that mean? Very important, they don't have chlorophyll. So if you have a look, if I go to the pictures over here, even if you see something kind of greenish on there, there's no chlorophyll. They need to live on something and get the food from that. If you look at mushrooms, you don't see any kind of green. Right, so guys, very important, they need to get their food some other way other than photosynthesis. Now, we get a few different terms that we're going to look at. The first one is we say that fungi is saprophytic. And what do we mean by that is fungi need to live on something, right? They need to eat something. When we use the word saprophytic, saprophytic means they live on dead organic matter. So what I'm saying to you is if something dies, an animal dies, or even the food that you've got in your house has been picked off the cheese that we've made, right, we leave it in the fridge, it's not living. So what happens is the fungi eats on that. So if something dies, if an animal dies, or if the leaves fall from the tree, right, the fungus is going to take all that food from that dead matter. Right, it's dead, that still means that there's stuff inside it, and that's what they're going to do. They're very good, all right, for breaking down dead matter, returning all those nutrients to the soil. Let's have a look at their conditions, and you'll see that. They like warm, moist, and dark places, right? So they don't need sunlight, no chlorophyll, they don't need sunlight. Warm and moist, nice temperature. What is another moist? Water, all right? So we need to have nice warm temperatures. Dark, we don't need the sunlight because we don't need to photosynthesize. Okay, some are parasitic, and we're going to have a look just now. What does that mean? Is they cause harm. Some actually cause harm, and those are the diseases that we're going to look at just now, all right? So if it's a parasite, it is obviously, we look at symbiosis, it is going to cause harm. However, there are also some fungi that are mutualistic. What does that mean? They have a relationship where the two benefit. Right, and we're going to look at the different relationships there. So when it comes to fungi, they have this various ways of which they can obtain food. Right, and that's quite important to how we look at. They're not part of the plant kingdom. They're not algae, a protist. They don't have chlorophyll. They don't have these roots, stems, and leaves. So they're in the kingdom fungi, right? And these are the characteristics that they're going to show. Okay, guys, so let me show you what I mean by saprophytic. So if you have a look at the pictures that I've chosen, right, they are feeding off, they want the food. What's in here? What's in an apple? What's in an orange? Sugar, right? What is sugar? Is glucose. And what do all living things need? Glucose, because they need it for energy. Right, later on in the year, you're probably going to look at, right, cellular respiration, and all cells need to cellular respire. And what do they need? They need this glucose. What does fruit have? Right, glucose, fructose. All right, oopsie daisy. Let me just quickly erase that quickly. Right, spell it properly for you. Okay, glucose is really important. Here's bread over here. And what has bread got into it? Glucose. So it gets in there, it burrows, and it takes all that food from it. Saprophytic. Okay, oh, gross. Okay, this is parasitic. And this we're going to look at just now is athlete's foot. Right, now if you have a look here, there's nice, it's dark, it's warm, and it's moist. If you don't try your toes properly, this is so gross. I hate feet. Right, but this is athlete's foot. And this is a fungus that's feeding, right, on the skin. And it's not going to kill you, but it is going to cause discomfort. Your feet are going to itch and they're going to peel and they could be quite sore, but we're going to have a look at that just now. All right, guys, then the next one, this is quite, all right, an important concept, and we're going to look at it later when we look at how microorganisms, all right, are very important in our environment. I don't know if you've ever seen this markings or these markings on tree trunks on plants, and I wonder what you've ever thought it is. This is called lichen or lichen, but we call it lichen. And what it actually is, have a look at this picture. It's fungi, notice by the yellow, but it's also got algae with it. Now, how does it help each other? When we look at the structure of fungi have got roots, right? They're not really proper roots, but they've got like these things, I'm going to put here, roots. They're actually called hyphae. And they are going to dig into the tree, and they're the support structure. Now, have a look at the algae. The algae are green. So what do you think they have? They have chlorophyll. So what can algae do? Photosynthesize. Right, so if they can do photosynthesis, what are they going to make? They're going to make food. So what does the fungi have? They have the support system to keep it on the tree. And in turn, what do the algae do? They provide food. Right, they provide food. And lichen are really good pollution indicators. If an area is got dirty and lots of pollution, lichen don't really grow there. If an area's got lots of oxygen and the air is clean, you're going to go and see a lot of lichen. I want you to go out, see if you can find some lichen. See if you can find it. Go and look on rocks, go and look on trees, right, and see if you can find it. Okay, the next one, it's quite a bit of a spelling. These are called Mycorrhizae. Now, this is the root of the plant, okay, the blue that you can see here. All of these white things are actually not roots. They're fungus. And they go into the soil. I'm going to change the color now, and I'm going to show them. So all of these red things are fungus threads. Right, now what do? As soon as you put threads out all over the show, what are those fungi going to do? They're going to absorb water, and they're going to absorb the nutrients. All right, so they help the plant. And what does the plant make? It makes food, photosynthesis, glucose. So the plant gives it glucose, and what does the fungi do? It helps the plant absorb all the water and the nutrients. What is a mutualistic relationship? When both benefit. And you can see here, both need each other to benefit. Okay, guys, now when we look at I don't know if you know what this is. This is yeast. It's one of the few, all right, unicellular, all right, fungi that we're going to find. Now, as I said to you, fungi are decomposers. This is now their characteristics. They are decomposers. They break down all living things, right? And they can, when they reproduce, these are spores. These are asexually. This is yeast reproducing. And where sometimes when conditions are not so great, two algae can actually, all right, not two algae, two fungi can actually join together. They join. It doesn't happen that often. They join together and they move certain things, you don't have to know the details, move across, and they can make a new, all right, fungi. And I'm going to show you just now exactly how, right, what we're talking about. Okay, guys, so when we look at a fungus, all right, most of it is multicellular. That's going to be your bread molds and your mushrooms, all right, and yeast is going to be, all right, your exception, which is going to be unicellular. Remember, yeast is what we use to make breads, what we use to make alcohol. Right, now this is the diagram that you're going to need to be able to recognize as fungus. Remember, each of time we need to have some kind of recognition. And this is the bread mold that we are going to, all right, concentrate on. Now, I want you to imagine this is the bread underneath here. And what the fungus does, it's not roots, guys. It is rhizoids. They look like this up top here. They long, all right, slender. They've got no chlorophyll, cytoplasm. And what they do is inside here, they dig into the bread. And guess what? They've got an enzyme in the bread called amylase. You guys have got the same thing in your mouth. And what it does, it takes all the glucose, right, the glucose, and it takes it, that's its food. It convert all the starch into bread, into glucose. And when the bread mold, okay, I don't know if you've ever seen when you see the dark colors, it has like a stem, but it's not a stem. We call it a sporangiophore, because at the very top, there's this, all right, when we do the bread mold, it's usually a big black, All right, a big black structure. I want to show you over here. If you see under the microscope, right, there's a big black structure at the top, and inside there, we've got spores. And what those spores do is, can you see over here, when this bursts, put a lot of water in it, it bursts, and all of these spores drop to the bread, and what do they start growing? They put all these hyphae, all right, these rhizoids, these roots, and they start to take all the nutrients from the bread, and they're going to grow, all right, and form spores again. So when you have a look at, I don't know if any of you have ever left bread, all right, in your suitcase, or you've hidden it somewhere, and it looks furry. It's like fuzzy. That's exactly what you've got. It's all these like strands that are trying to get into the bread, and those color ones are the big balls where the spores are. And a spore can make a new, all right, plant. And if those spores burst and they fall onto the bread, they're going to keep on growing because they want all the nutrients. Okay, guys, that's it for now. We're going to have a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back, Life Sciences. I hope you had, all right, a nice little break. Remember, right, stretch the legs, get the brain going, get the blood flowing. Don't forget, should I say, you had to do something for homework. Please go and find some lichen. Right, remember, after this, go and hunt for some lichen. Okay, guys, so what we've looked at so far, we've looked at the microorganism fungus, all right, the fungi kingdom, and we looked at its structure and we looked at its characteristics. Now, obviously, one of the things about fungus is that it is parasitic. It needs to live on something to be able to get its food, and it usually causes a little bit of harm. But when we look at these, compared to viruses and compared to the bacteria, where we looked at the viruses, we looked at HIV, right? We could look at COVID. If we look at bacteria, we looked at tuberculosis. When we looked at the protists, we looked at malaria. The diseases caused by fungus are not as life-threatening. They can be a little bit uncomfortable, but they are quite easily treated if you do get it. So that's maybe, all right, on the good slide. Okay, there's a few things, again, all right, the words, the terminology that we're going to use, right, certain diseases or infections that you might not have heard before. So as we go through, pay attention to how we use those words, how we use those terms. Okay, guys, so what do we look at when we look at the diseases? Remember, we're following the same recipe each time. What are the effects, and how do I manage it? Now, because these are not as deadly and as contagious, right, they can be as the others, right, the treatment of it sometimes is actually quite simple, and you don't always have to go to a doctor. Most of the treatments, you can go to your chemist, right, which is actually far more convenient. Okay, the first one we're going to look at, right, is called, all right, thrush. There's various names for it: candida, yeast infection. And what exactly is it? Let's take a look. So guys, when we look at it, it's caused by, remember, we're looking at fungus. It's caused by the fungus Candida albicans. Now, the first one is unfortunately very common in women, right? Because what happens is that in the female vagina, right, we need to make sure the fungus that's there actually kind of is kept in place by bacteria. So the inside of the female, the fungus and bacteria actually keep the female quite healthy. Now, basically what happens quite often is the bacteria we got a lot of bacteria in us, that is really important, and it keeps the yeast in check. And sometimes certain conditions, you might be sick, or you might be on medicine, or maybe you are pregnant, etc. And what happens is the bacteria isn't there anymore, and the yeast grows. And if we call it, all right, the yeast infection, you'll see that what happens is you have, when you urinate, it's quite burny, It might be itchy. Remember, it's the fungus growing there. It's causing irritation. I'm going to use the word irritation because that's exactly what it does. Right, so we have a bit of a discharge as a female, right? This is always a sign that maybe something's wrong, right? If we have a look and we see that maybe in our panties there's something that shouldn't be there, that maybe we need to go and have a check-in. Also maybe, right, when we urinate, when we wee, what happens is there might be a lot of pain there. Now, as I said to you, it can be quite common in women. It's not necessarily a sexually transmitted disease either. Some women get it just by certain soaps, etc., that their body uses. A lot more common, yes, this is a really gross picture, right, is that we also, in our mouth, there's a lot of bacteria, and if we have a yeast infection, as you can see, it's this white. Much easier to see on the tongue because it's visible, whereas obviously for the female, it's internal. So you get these, again, these white bumps. It's sore, right? It's dry, it's gross. What happens is you might get a little bit of bleeding on the inside of your mouth here, right? But you will notice from the very thick whiteness on the tongue. And that's very often babies get it, right? If they given some kind of medicine. Antibiotics can cause this quite often because antibiotics kill bacteria. So if you have antibiotics, what happens is it kills all the bacteria, which you want to because it's infection, but sometimes that causes the fungus. So especially if you're sick, if you have antibiotics, sometimes the doctor says to you to take a probiotic, but a good probiotic, if you can't, is maybe to eat a lot of yogurt. Yogurt has got natural bacteria in it and it will get your body in tip-top shape again. Guys, as I said to you, the overuse of antibiotics, right, this is what causes it. In immune deficiency, it happens a lot. Remember, your immune system is there to fight infection. And if you have some kind of disease like HIV and TB, where immune system is down, it just means that this fungus, I'm going to use the word, it's opportunistic, right? It comes in, all right, because something in your body is not working, all right? It happens a lot to women who are under a lot of stress, right? Your body has a way of telling you that it's stress, and this could be one of the symptoms. Also, having a poor diet if you don't eat properly, right? And a lot of times eating also helps with your immune system. A poor diet also can mean that your immune system is not working as well, which makes it a lot more opportunistic. And guys, over here, I know there's warmth and moisture in the genitals. All right, it's the area down there, we need to, when we wash it, we need to dry properly. We need to be very careful about wearing, right, very tight pants, etc., for a very long time. We've got to make sure that we get air, fresh air, and we don't keep that, all right, that warm, moist air. Have a look. Where does fungus grow? Warm, moist, and dark, all right, which describes the mouth, all right, and the female vagina exactly. So we've got to try and keep things airy and light, and much easier then. Make sure we dry after we bath, after we shower, etc. Okay, guys, and how do we treat it? Treatment is actually quite easy here. You have to go to the chemist. It's over the counter, right? It's what we call an antifungal cream, right? So if you've got, for example, it might be in your mouth. You can have a mouthwash, which you gargle, right, and it kills the fungus. Or if you, right, have a vaginal infection, candida, the thrush, the yeast infection, it's an ointment, right, a cream that obviously has to be placed, and that kills the fungus. Right, antifungal cream is going to kill the fungus. You don't need antibiotics. As I said to you, you can actually treat this by simply going to the chemist. Right. right, athlete's foot. Why is it called athlete's foot? Because generally athletes use public showers when they go to the gym, right, or they go swimming somewhere and they go afterwards and they go to the showers. And what is the showers? Dark, moist, and warm from all the heat, and the fungus is there right on the shower floor. So what does it do? If you have a look over here, right, the fungus wants to eat your skin. So what it does here in between your toes, warm, dark, and moist, the fungus starts to eat your skin. As you can see, it starts to itch, it dries it out, or you scratch it a lot. And with those scratching, you can make it bleed, all right? So it's uncomfortable. It's not going to kill you, all right, but it is going to make you uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but for me, there's nothing worse than itchy feet, wanting to scratch your feet. It just, all right, it's just the most uncomfortable thing ever. So, and the more you scratch, right, the bigger the blisters become, so you need to be obviously treated quite easily. Now, what you do, all right, a simple thing, again, you go to a chemist, you go to Clicks, right, you can even go to any kind of supermarket, and they've got creams there. Right, again, an antifungal cream, you'll see, I think the names, I know I'm brand naming, but Lamazole or Mycorrhizae, right? And what that does is, it's again antifungal cream, but it's going to, very often it can be a powder, and it's going to dry up that fungus, it's going to kill it, right? And that is obviously going to get rid of it. So, how do you not get it? Guys, dry your feet. Right, after you get out the shower, make sure your feet are dry. Right, so rub it with a towel or walk around with bare feet. Very often, sometimes, especially men, because they're the ones who wear socks and shoes straight from the shower. They put those socks on, and the feet are warm, dark, and moist. Ideal if the fungus is there. Right, something that's not very easy to do, because I know you sometimes forget, but if you do go to public showers, or if you go to the gym, I would suggest maybe just take a pair of shower slops with you, right? Obviously, then your feet won't come into contact with the fungus, and you're not going to get it that way. Then after you shower, what do? You dry your feet, right? You dry your feet. Okay, the next fungal disease is ringworm. Now, ringworm, people often think that it's caused by a worm. It's not. It's a fungus. Now, if you have a look, all right, it gets its name from it looks like a worm. All right, it's a round structure on your skin, okay, and it looks like this. Very often, you can get it in your hair, right, on your head, and it actually forms all these bald patches over here. And as I said to you before, it is caused by a fungus here. Taenia corporis. The same as the feet one is also Taenia pedis, feet. Right, so it's a fungus that is eating here, again, it likes the skin. Your skin has got protein, right? It's food, because your skin on the top layer over here, guys, you must remember this. This is dead, all right? It comes off. And it's nice food. If lots of it comes off in your bed at night and it's in your sheets and there's little hohos eating it, right? And this is exactly the same here. This fungus needs your skin. It needs, look at your hair, the protein, keratin. It's feeding off all of that dry skin on your scalp. It's really gross, yes. Okay, all right. Now again, very easy to treat. Antifungal cream. Go to the chemist, right, and you just the same cream as we would have used, right, for the beginning when we had a look at the athlete's foot, etc. When we looked at the first one, when we had thrush, an antifungal cream, you just put it over the infection, and it goes away nicely. It itches a bit, all right. I had one. I'm not going to lie to you. I got it from my cat. Cats have a really, all right, in their fur. Right, one of the things you'll see here, don't touch pets. I didn't know it, and my cat used to, right, crawl up behind me, right, and lie next to my back, and that's where I got one. And it burns, and it itches, and it's not very pleasant. And all you do is you put a little bit of cream on it, and it goes away instantly. As I said, more of an irritation than it is anything else. Guys, also a very important thing when it comes to hygiene, don't share brushes with each other. Don't share clothes with each other, right? I know we often do. Must maybe make sure that the clothes are clean, that we wash, that we share things that are clean. So especially when it comes to those kind of things, maybe because the fungus can, right, be transported from one person to the other. Okay, now believe it or not, right, so do plants. Plants also get a fungal infection, and it's called rust. Now I want you to have a look over here. So what it does is, this is what it looks like on the outside. It's brown. Now have a look at this picture on this side here. This is the rust. Now remember, it's a fungus. A fungus grows these hyphae, those threads, into the plant. Because what do they need to get? Glucose. Guys, they need food. But have a look here. All right. What plants do they grow into? Crops. Wheat, mealies, etc. They destroy it. And crops are food. Right? We cannot have a rust, a fungus infection, right, kill our food. If you have a look in the 1800s, you might, some of you might have read about it, that a fungus attacked Ireland's potatoes. It was called potato blight. Right? And an island was very, right, the island there in the UK, they relied heavily on potatoes, right, as an export to make money. And their whole potato crop, right, was destroyed by, right, this fungus. The people starved, right, the economy collapsed because they didn't have any money. So it caused a huge, big food shortage, famine, right, if the fungus is going to attack our crops. So what do we need to try and do? And here, guys, a lot of the thing maybe when you look at when you look at genetically modified organisms, when you look at genetics maybe in the grade 12 syllabus, what you're looking at here is you need to try and find a way to make the plants resistant to rust. And that's what we call a genetically modified organism. We change the genes of the crop so the rust can't attack. Right, we can also try and spray. If you spray in your garden, that's fine. But if we have to spray all of the crops, it's just far too expensive. So what farmers prefer to do, right, is what we call varieties that are resistant to the crops. Okay, guys, that's all we have for now. We're going to take another little break, and we'll see you right after this. Welcome back, Life Sciences. We're ready for the last segment, all right, of this session. What have we looked at so far? Remember, we're looking at the microorganism fungi, right, the kingdom fungi. And we looked at the structure, and we looked at the characteristics, and we looked at a few of the diseases that fungus, all right, could cause. A lot less severe than the diseases in our previous sections, but nonetheless might cause a bit of irritation and need to be treated. Okay, now we're going to dive into a few questions that we can ask on this section, and let's see the kind of things that the fungus can ask us. Right, guys, our first question, we always start off with a nice, easy multiple choice. Multiple choice, when I say is easy, it's not always easy, but it does. The answer is there. It gives us words that we need to start to use. So let's have a look at the first one. It says, which statement correctly describes, oh, let's go back. I think we're going to have to get the pen going again. We always forget about the pen. Which statement correctly describes, now have a look, we've done all the microorganisms, fungi and protozoans. Now if you can remember, protozoans were the animal, all right, the animal-like structures, right, of the protist kingdom. Now let's have a look at all of our options. Number A, fungi and protozoans are all unicellular. Now that is incorrect. Protozoans, yes, are, but fungi, not all of them. So that statement is incorrect. Statement number B, fungi and protozoans all have chloroplasts. Neither fungi nor protozoans, guys, have chloroplasts. One is the animal, all right, of protists. Fungi, we know, have to live on other living organisms, so that statement would be incorrect. Fungi and protozoans are eukaryotic. Yes, they both are. Both of them are eukaryotic cells. They have a nucleus with membrane-bound structures. But we now just go and check the last question to make sure we're correct. It says, fungi and protozoans all have cell walls. Okay, fungi, yes, has a cell wall, but protozoans, being animal-like cells, they do not have at all. They just have a cell membrane. So that would be incorrect. So number C would be a correct answer. Okay, guys, the next question is one that you often are going to get in, all right, your exams or tests. And you need to read the information very carefully because it gives you options. Now it says, indicate whether each of the statements in column 1. Okay, so here they have a statement. Now you are given 4 different options, and you've got to read it carefully. All right, so your options are as follows. You are given an A and a B, as you can see over there. Now, what you need to do is the following. The A and the B, right, must, so we go to the diagram. We go to this statement, right, is A correct? Is B correct? So if A is correct, you write only A. If statement B is correct, you write B only. If both A and B are correct, they both, all right, are the correct answer to the statement, you write both A and B. Or your fourth option, okay, so you've got 1, 2, 3, fourth option, neither, not A nor B is correct, then you write none. Okay, so we read column 1. It says disease causing fungus. And our 2 options are parasitic or heterotrophic. What causes disease? Parasitic causes disease. What number is it? It's A, so it's A only. There's my option, A only. Okay, guys, now the second question, all right, the description is as follows. It's a multicellular organism, right? It has branched filaments and it has a cell wall. Now, what are my 2 options? Fungi and bacteria. Now, if I look at the first question, multicellular organism, bacteria is out. So my answer must be fungi, which is A. So my answer is A only. Both of them A only. Don't get too worried if both are the same answer. Okay, now we're going to go for quite a longish question. So let's read what the question says. It says, a mycorrhiza, right, which we know is a mutualistic relationship between fungal hyphae and roots. So we know it's a fungus, right, and we find it in the roots of plants. The hyphae, those are the threads, increase the absorptive surface of the plant's roots. So they make the roots bigger. Remember, we have roots and then we have all these little ones coming there and we can absorb more water. It says, by aiding in the absorption of water, phosphorus, and other minerals. It's telling you important information about the experiment that you're going to do. Right, so it's telling you the mycorrhiza really helps plants to grow. The plant is photosynthetic, which means that it can make glucose and starch and provides the fungus with carbohydrates. Guys, really important, read it carefully. A lot of the information you need is going to be here. Okay, let's set up the experiment. The scientists conduct an experiment to determine, as soon as you see to determine, that is the aim of the experiment, the effects of mycorrhizal associations on plant growth. Very simply, What do they want to know? Does mycorrhiza help plants? How did I set it up? I had 2 groups of plants that were grown, right? Now I'm going to change something. One group was planted in soil that had been sterilized. What does sterilization do? Sterilization gets rid of microorganisms. So in this case, right, guys, no this group, no fungus. If I sterilize it, no microorganism, no fungus. The other group was planted in the same type of soil, a fixed or controlled variable, but the soil had not been sterilized. So this group, the fungus, would have been present. All other factors remained the same, controlled variables between the 2 groups. The plants were allowed to grow for 8 weeks. Each week, the height in centimeters of the plant was measured. Okay, so what we have here, right, what is our independent variable? What did we choose? We choose independent variable, the soil, whether it was sterilized or not. What was the dependent variable? We must start thinking along those lines. What can I not control, right, was the height of the plants. Okay. All right, so guys, here is the results after the 8 weeks. Here we have the 8 weeks. Here, all right, we have the height of each of the plants. This was the non-fungus, fungus, and this was the fungus. So let's see what kind of questions. Number 1, identify the independent variable. Now this is quite tricky because a lot of you say, oh, it's the first column in the table. That is, all right, weeks. No, it's not. What were we looking for? What could we change? The independent variable, what did I decide? And I decided if the soil was sterilized or not. All right, okay. Independent, I. What did I choose? So if I go back to the next one, what is the dependent? Dependent is results. What was I looking for? Let's go back here. What was I looking for? I was looking for whether the plants grew or not. Okay, that was the dependent. Are they going to grow or are they not going to grow? So if we have a look at the dependent, it was the height. That's my results. What am I looking at? How well did they grow? The height of the plants. Guys, we always remember units of measurement. How did I measure it? In centimeters. Okay, always describe one way in which you ensured the results of the investigation were valid. In other words, the controlled variables. What did you do the same, right? The same to the whole experiment. Number 1, what I did see here, we're going to go back to this, all right, over here. Oopsie, I'm going the wrong way. Let me go back again. Let's go back to this one over here. All right, controlled variables, look here. All right, the other group was planted the same. All factors remain the same. And here, the plants were planted in the same soil. So, what did I do the same? Same soil. Now, if I say the same factors, what do you think that means? Now I need to use a little bit of common sense. What else was the same? I'm growing plants. The same factors. Same amount of water, right? Same amount of light. And I kept them all for the same amount of time, which was 8 weeks. Oopsie, I'm going right down there. Okay, so what is it? When I find a way that I can make sure the results, that's my controlled variable. What did I do to the same groups? Okay, guys, the next one that I have to do, right, is draw a graph. Now have a look here. It says use the data to draw 2 lines. Generally, we don't use color, so if you don't use color, you need to come up with a key. Now, let's have a look how we're going to start. What's the first thing you always need to do when you have a graph, right? You are going to give me a heading. And you tell me, always tell me what you are going to draw. I'm going to draw a line graph, and what are my 2 variables? Showing the height, okay, of plants in 2 types of soil. And you can even say sterilized, non-sterilized. There I've got my heading going. Right, I'm going to draw a line graph, and I start here at 0. Now, weeks is not so much what I want to do. Yes, so weeks, that is going to be on my x-axis. All right, so guys, we're going to have weeks on my x-axis. And what am I going to have here? Height in centimeters on my y, and you're going to decide sterilized. You're going to do dot, dash, and non-sterilized, you're going to draw a straight line. And remember, I'm just going to do it randomly. You're going to point, and you're going to join your dots, and you're going to have a key. All right, so weeks, there's 1, height. Make sure that your numbers follow each other, and there you're going to put 2 line graphs on the 1 graph. Okay, guys, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Time has run out, I'm afraid. I hope you had a good lesson. Remember, go and find that lichen. We will see you next time. Cheerio, bye.